Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm Corey Miller.
And I'm Ahmad Hicks.
We're debuting our new show here on YouTube and the 5 on Your Side website, Cardinals Plus. We're really excited. This is our first episode, so we're going to kind of feel some things out, try a couple of segments out. There's going to be some hitches probably. Will evolve over time. But we're excited to get going, talk some Cardinals with you ahead of what should be a very exciting season.
And we'll lead things off with our first topic called Leading Off. And one of the big topics right now, while the Cardinals are down in Jupiter, Florida, preparing for the start of the 2021 season, is this starting rotation. Only Adam Wainwright and Carlos Martinez have successfully gotten out of the first inning. Corey, your thoughts on the rotation? Are you nervous? Are you scared for these guys?
Well, we've talked a little bit about this on our Sports Plus podcast, which you guys should listen to as well. And it is early in spring training, so don't be too spooked by any of this. Jack Flaherty looked better today, but I am concerned about a few things. We talked about this before. I'll get to what I'm most concerned about right off the top. Miles Mikolas, I'm very concerned about, especially now we know he's not going to be ready to start the 2021 season as expected. So you were counting on, okay, who's going to be the fifth starter? Now you're going to have to think, okay, who's going to be now you got to find two guys for sure that you want to plug in to start the year. So very concerned about Miles Mikolas, and you don't have Austin Gomber there as one of your depth pieces anymore, which you were pretty confident in. So I'm nervous there, but the other guys, I think they'll figure it out. How about you?
Maybe they can call Eli Drinkwitz. He said that he was ready. He said he could top 62, 65 on the gun. So I think he would be a viable option coming out of the bullpen for them. But no, in all seriousness, you came into the season just knowing that the Cardinals had one spot to fill out, and that was the number 5 spot. And that was between Carlos Martinez, Alex Reyes, John Gant, Daniel Ponce de Leon. Where now you're looking at it as Miles Mikolas is most likely not going to start the season with the Cardinals. So now you wonder, is Carlos Martinez ready to go? He has more than enough skill to get the job done. Now his opportunity will be there. And the Cardinals, they talked about Alex Reyes. We'll leave that for our next subject. But right now, you're just looking at, is Ponce ready? Is Gant ready? We know Carlos Martinez will be that number 4 guy now. So now it goes back to what we were saying before spring training started. Who's the number 5 guy? Daniel Ponce de Leon? John Gant? Who knows?
Yeah, Carlos looked a lot better in his second start compared to his first. So hopefully that's a sign of things to come. And yeah, like you said, it was questions if he was going to be the 5th guy. Now he's definitely one of the guys since Mikolas isn't ready to start the year. But yeah, you brought up Alex Reyes. Mike Shildt, I've been the biggest Alex Reyes fan that I know, and I want to see him get a shot in the rotation. But I understand what they're doing. Mike Shildt throwing cold water on that notion. He's not going to start in 2021, at least at the beginning. Going to keep him around 100 innings. I think that's a prudent decision, especially because if this guy has one more setback, we might not get him at all because just the way his career has gone. So I get it. I would not hate to see him piggyback off a Carlos Martinez start or whoever that other guy's going to be, or heck, even use him as an opener to pitch the first couple innings and get the team started out of the gate. Ahmad, how do you want to see them use Alex Reyes in 2021?
Well, I want to see him on the field because in my eyes, next to, Yadier Molina, he is the flyest Cardinal on the field. He has some of the best kicks, the best cleats, the Jordan cleats. So I'm a big fan of his style on the field. And if you look good, you play good, as Deion Sanders would say. But I obviously know that we have to keep it safe with Reyes. He's been plagued with injuries his entire career. And you really just want to see this guy pitch a full season, get through it injury-free, and then you can start to build on that next season. So I like what they're doing. Cap them at 100 innings, let them be successful in those 100 innings, and make us be itching for more. And then next year, expand his role. But right now, take it slow and let him just pitch an entire season.
Let's talk about the back end of the pitching staff right now. And Reyes said he liked closing, and he was pretty good at it. He was going to be their guy in the postseason if they would have went any farther. The game was going to come down to him at the end. And heck, they might use him in that way. But there's another guy who we're both really excited to see and got some exciting news today. We're recording this on Wednesday. Jordan Hicks faced hitters in an actual game. It was the B game, so nobody really saw it on the backfields against the Nationals, but he was pretty impressive. Let's listen real quickly on what Mike Shildt, his manager, had to say about Jordan Hicks facing somebody from a different team for the first time since 2019.
I don't think it would have mattered what wins you're looking at. You were looking at from your vantage point, my vantage point, standing upside down on your head. I don't know if it would matter. That was pretty darn good. 3 first pitch strikes, in control of what he was doing, clearly life to his ball. Super encouraging first outing in over a year against another club. So, very positive day for Jordan.
So that's what Mike Schilt had to say. He's excited. We're all excited. Ahmad, just how big would Jordan Hicks being his normal self be for the Cardinals?
I mean, think about it. This guy tops, 102, 103 on the gun. Who doesn't want somebody like that coming out of the bullpen? I think if he's able to play and his arm is healthy, you have to love what the Cardinals have going on, especially on the back end of that bullpen. If you can have Alex Reyes or John Gann as these setup guys, and then you come back with a guy throwing 102 at the end of the bullpen, I mean, the games will be a lot more interesting, especially with the Cardinals' good defense. You would like to think that all those pieces would finally start to come together. But, I mean, only time will tell if he's ready to come back and be that Jordan Hicks that we saw 2 years ago before, Tommy John surgery and obviously opting out last year. But you have to be excited for a guy that throws as hard as he does. And, hey, his last name is Hicks, so I'm rooting for him all the way.
So usually when guys get Tommy John surgery, they come back throwing harder. I don't think that's really possible here.
I hope not. I mean, please don't try it out. 102, 103 is just fine for us. We do not need him blowing out an arm or a shoulder.
And it seems like he's just coming off this, but that's not really true. He missed all of last year, opting out of the season, so he's had more than ample time to get ready, and I think that they've played this perfectly, and they're starting to hype him up little by little, not to get people too ahead of themselves, but it's
just to put him on the radar.
Jordan Hicks hype train is coming. I'm very excited to watch him. He's one of the most exciting players in all of baseball, pitcher, position player. When he comes into the game, you're not leaving. You're going to watch.
Exactly.
Let's move on. The biggest story of spring, of course, that we have to tackle on the first episode of the Cardinals Plus show we're doing here. Nolan Arenado. Ahmad, your take, your first reaction. Do you remember what you were doing? Well, you were working. I was working anchoring. You were anchoring when you hear the Cardinals actually went and did it. They got Nolan Arenado.
You know what's funny is I have a guy that normally tweets me a lot, and he's a very big supporter of 5 on Your Side on my Twitter page. And he sent me a message, and he said, the Cardinals did it. They finally got Arenado. And I was like, what? I was like, no. I was like, there's no way he knows this before me. And so sure enough, I go to social media. I start checking everything. And sure enough, the Cardinals got him. And I'm like, oh, my goodness. They finally got the bat we've been waiting on them to acquire for the past 2 seasons. And it was like a dream come true. Corey, you talk about this guy for his career, 1,200 hits, 760 RBIs, 235-plus home runs. I mean, think about that production that the Cardinals have been missing in their lineup for the past 2 to 3 years. It just was a dream come true. Every Cardinals fan was excited. I went on my timeline. Even the females who don't watch a lot of Cardinals baseball were thrilled about the opportunity to go back to a game because they understood the magnitude of a player like Nolan Arenado. And I think that's just great. Even some of my friends who aren't big Cardinal fans, they are excited about what's to come for this Cardinals team because they understand what Nolan Arenado can bring to this team and this lineup.
I was with a friend of mine, actually, and he just casually kind of goes, oh, the Cardinals got Arenado. And I said, no. And I looked, and yeah, they did. And I stopped what I was doing and ran out into the other room and wrote a web story on my phone because I was so excited. I knew it was going to be such a big deal. And yeah, one guy, it's hard to change an entire lineup, but that's really what it feels like right now. We'll see. The Cardinals are definitely going to need more from their secondary guys, but to have a guy with the reputation of Arenado, never hit less than 37 home runs in a season, his last 5 seasons, entering his peak here. That's impressive.
Bring it on.
I don't know. Now, I want to temper expectations a little bit. Busch Stadium is not Coors Field. St. Louis is not Colorado. So if this guy's not crushing a home run every other game, calm down. That's to be expected. I think the power numbers, it's going to come back to earth a little bit, at least a little bit. If he's still hitting 40 bombs at Busch Stadium like he was in Colorado, I'm going to be very impressed. But you got to have some
that baseball travels in the summertime with the humidity here, so I don't think he'll have any problems with that. And even if he doesn't crack 37, 40 home runs, I mean, you have to look at what this guy's going to do on the defensive end. A Gold Glove nearly every season that he's played, then you pair that up with Goldschmidt at first base and Yadier behind the plate, and a potential Gold Glove winner in center field with Bader and Tyler O'Neill. This defense looks great, and that's what wins championships, right, Cor?
The Cardinals love that run prevention. That's their big money maker. They know they're not going to outslug every team, but if they can prevent runs, that's their go-to. And something else interesting, since Arenado's getting out of Colorado, a lot of people think he could be better on the road this season because that altitude makes a difference, and you get so used to that. Then you go, and his play suffered dramatically on the road because it's just so different. Now playing at more down to sea level and everything's kind of normal, he could have increased production on the road. Let's hear from Arenado real quickly. He cannot wait to see those fans at Busch Stadium.
No, I mean, everything I think about this organization it's come to light, obviously seeing it, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there hasn't been any surprises. Obviously, the intensity has been great. The hard work, the coaches are all locked in. It's been really cool. The communication's been great. Everything I kind of expected, it's been that. So I've been really excited. I really like it so far, and it's the way it should be. So it's been nice.
And now that we covered the guy on third base, we have to talk about the GOAT, the greatest catcher of all time, Yadier Molina, behind the plate. I don't know if you guys saw that video this past week where he gunned down an Astros base runner who kind of threatened him that he was going to steal and kind of egged him on. And Yadi's like, go ahead, try me. And then he just gunned him down by what looked like 100 feet. I mean, it's just, Corey, why would anybody try or tease Yadi like that? That makes no sense.
This guy comes jogging into the game, replacing the designated hitter to run. He's never played a game in the major leagues. Gives his gold chain to the first base coach. Yadi almost picks him off and starts shaking his head and saying, no, not giving them Matumbo finger wag, not today. Like, what is this guy doing? So, yeah, Yadi invites him to steal, and it ends like you think it would.
You would think that these teams do their homework before these games and they would know who's beyond the plate. I know they have a scouting report, and he clearly didn't pay attention to it because, I mean, Corey, look at this stat that we found the other day. The Cardinals have only allowed 847 stolen bases since 2004. Yadi's tenure in St. Louis, the second closest, Arizona with 1,250. So what are you thinking? Read the scouting report. Don't try to go. He's not going for it.
And people will say, well, his total caught stealing is low compared to some other catchers all time, but that's because people don't even try him anymore.
Right.
And I mean, that's a bigger impact than anything else.
I mean, that's like me saying I can go out there and go replace Torrey Holt or Isaac Bruce on the greatest show of all time. I can't do that. Nobody can do that. And so I would know as a defensive back when I'm out there trying to guard these guys, like, let me back up, all right? Because I know they have a lot of speed and they may take it over the top. So teams are looking at Yadi like, yeah, right. We're not trying to run on him. We already know what the outcome is going to be, and we're just wasting it out. And so that's why you say you look at that total number of runners caught stolen, and it's like, oh, okay, it's not that high, but it's like, hey, this is Yadi, and look at the number of people who actually try him. It's not a lot.
Last thing on that Yadi thing, pretty much everybody had to have seen him by now, but go back, watch it. It was a changeup. It's not a fastball. Woodford threw him a changeup, and he still threw him out by like 5 or 6 feet. So that was the most impressive thing I took away from that too. All right, you hear those birds chirping, you could maybe guess what this next segment's going to be. It's called Chirping. We're going to go around, take some comments from you guys on Twitter and on Facebook. What's on your mind? This week we posed the question, what are you most excited for the Cardinals in 2021? And not totally surprising answers here. We'll get into them. Amanda Hoffman on Facebook, Sammy Helms on Twitter, both saying Nolan Arenado at the hot corner. I think that's going to be the overwhelming favorite there. I don't blame them. I'm sure those 28 jerseys are going to be sold out in no time in the Cardinals.
Oh, they're going to be
store.
all around Busch Stadium as soon as they open up those doors to 32% capacity. And then when it goes to 100, I'm sure we'll see half the ballpark in Nolan Arenado jerseys.
Jamie Ossel Wagner, hope I'm pronouncing that right, on Facebook saying Yadi and Waino back together again. I really like that comment there because there was a time we weren't totally sure if we were going to see that. Everybody kind of thought it was going to happen, but there was a reasonable doubt that these two weren't going to be together again. They are, at least for one more season. I kind of feel like this is going to be it as a duo for sure. I think at least one of them is going to call it quits after this one. So we should definitely appreciate 2021.
I mean, you should appreciate number 4 and that number 50 connection. I mean, it's something to see, especially on Sundays at the ballpark when it seems like Waino is pitching and dealing and just beating whoever he plays. It doesn't get any better than a summer Sunday in St. Louis with Waino pitching on the mound and Yadi behind played. Two GOATs for sure. We'll cherish this last season that we had with them. We won't be too judgmental about everything that's going on, because you just have to think that you rarely see two players like that stay and play for one team their entire career. So I think that's pretty cool, and we'll be excited to watch that this season.
That sounds a Sunday watching Yadier Molina at Busch, and like honestly, give me like 100-degree weather. That's fine right now. I'll take it. That sounds pretty good.
Just gives me a cold one to cool us down, okay?
All right, yeah, I can get on board with that. Joe Wilkinson on Facebook saying the duo of Arenado and Goldschmidt, which he thought he'd never see, and that's an interesting point on its own. The Cardinals went out and got two of the biggest stars in the National League to play for them, and I'm not even kidding here. Like 4 or 5 years ago, if I could have picked two guys I wanted to see on the Cardinals that were reasonable, because you're not getting Mike Trout or anything like that, two reasonable names, I would have said these two guys, and now the Cardinals have them, and it could be a duo like we saw. You know, Goldschmidt is not Albert Pujols, but Nolan Arenado could be Scott Rowland, and we could see a duo like that. These two guys combined, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and you think about that. Just look at the addition out in right field with Dylan Carlson. This is the guy who they said may be the next Albert Pujols. So forget just the Arenado and Goldschmidt, pair in, Dylan Carlson, and I mean, that just takes the cake. But you have to love that the hot corners are taken care of at first and third base right now. You have two Gold Glove winners. You have two big bats in the lineup. Cardinals Nation doesn't have much to complain about right now, except for the fact that the team hasn't won a World Series in what seems like an eternity. So we're trying to accomplish that this year as well.
An eternity? Oh man, don't let Mariners fans or Cubs fans or pretty much anybody else hear you say that, Ahmad.
Well, Cardinals Nation is spoiled. We grew up with the luxury of seeing the Cardinals competitive all the time and compete for World Series titles and go to NLCS pennants and stuff like that. So we are spoiled in this fan base. I will admit that, but we are grateful that they go to the playoffs all the time and give us a red October to enjoy. And we have to have a little fun on the show, a little debate style back and forth. So we have the red hot seat. And one of the hottest topics last season with the Cardinals, and whether they made a good move or a bad move, was the Randy Arozarena trade for Matthew Liberatore. So I'm going to let Corey go first, and then I'm going to chime in. Corey, what do you think? Do you think the Cardinals won that trade or lost it?
So I'm going to back up John Mozeliak here, which I do a lot. And I've tried to critique myself and say you need to be a little harder on him, but honestly most of the things he's done I would do too. He hasn't been perfect. Brett Cecil, that didn't exactly work out, but I would have made this trade in a heartbeat. Ideally the Cardinals internal, this is the one thing I'd say, maybe the Cardinals need to get a little bit better about internally how they value their players, because if the Rays were asking for somebody else instead of Arozarena, and the Cardinals knew this breakout he had it in him, okay, you send somebody else that way. But just in terms of on paper, this looked great, and I still think it looks great, because if you can get a prospect as high thought of as Matthew Liberatore, who's a left-handed starter, those are pretty darn rare. And I think Liberatore is going to make everybody forget about Randy Arozarena eventually. Not in the too distant future either.
I'll tread lightly with my answer. It is a tough position that John Mozeliak in, and to scout that talent and to realize the talent that you have in a guy like Arozarena, but you give that up for hopefully a guy with Liberatore who can be your ace for the next 10 to 12 years. So it's hard to say yay or nay for this, but I'm going to say that in the moment last year, yes, that was a bad trade. And we can even go back to 2017. I mean, look at Tommy Pham. When that guy played over 100 baseball games, he had 23 home runs that year. So you show that when you give these young guys who come up from the AAA an opportunity, they may have a chance to succeed. I think with Randy Arozarena, he never really got his full opportunity. This was a guy who hit every level he was at when he was in the Cardinals organization. They bring him up and they play him sparingly. And it's like, what do you expect a guy to do with minimum opportunities? So I think in a sense, last year, looking at the postseason and how the Cardinals couldn't buy a hit with their outfielders, you would have loved to have a guy like Tommy Pham playing in center field and a guy like Randy Arozarena playing in left or right field. But when you look at it the way Corey broke it down, long haul, Matthew Liberatore, prize prospect, you have to be okay with that situation if he pans out. But if Arozarena and Tommy Pham just tear it up this year, and Dylan Carlson and Harrison Bader and Tyler O'Neill, struggle and strike out a lot, then you're scratching your head like, when is this Liberatore guy getting up here, and how good is he going to be? Because you have to think he still has to get acclimated to the majors, have his little rough spots, and then we hope he will, succeed. So who knows how long that would be? That could be next year. That could be 2 to 3 more years. So it makes it better that you have Arenado, a guy that can hit, so you don't have to really worry too much about the lack of hitting. But if your outfielders aren't doing anything and they're batting 7, 8, 9, or 6, 7, and 8, then people are going to be scratching their heads until Liberatore steps on the mound and Bush and proves everybody wrong.
Well, you don't need to get me on board if we're talking Tommy Pham, because I love Tommy Pham, and I was really sad to see him go. But you brought up,
Absolutely.
I think, the key point here, which is I really like this trade, and I'm going to defend Mozeliak over it. But what I don't like is that Arozarena didn't get a chance with the Cardinals when they weren't getting offense from any other of their outfielders, because we were over there at the ballpark every day, and it seemed like we asked Mike Schilt about Randy Arozarena every day until they finally brought him up. They did. But then he didn't play. So maybe if they would have given him a chance, he would have broke out like this for them, and they wouldn't have even they wouldn't have had to see him do it for Tampa. So I think that's one of the key things in this deal too.
And now our last but not least final subject. We have the time machine. Me, I'm kind of a in-the-moment type of guy. I can tell you a lot about the Cardinals from my current lifetime and what I'm able to remember, mainly from high school and so on. But my guy, Corey Miller, is a historian. He knows everything about the Cardinals, and he's going to educate you guys a little more with our time machine segment.
Oh, geez. Well, I don't know if I like that build-up too much. That's a lot to live up to, Ahmad. Thank you, I guess. Let's go. With this segment, we're just going to look back this week, something interesting that happened in the past, because we know the Cardinals have a very rich history and a lot of cool and a lot of weird stuff that happened that hopefully we'll dive into. So let's look at this week's, and we're going to go back to 2005 this week. Rick Ankiel, you know that name, singled off Brad Thompson in a Cardinals intra-squad game down to spring training. He was 1 for 2. That was his first game as a position player after working his way back from the yips and all sorts of problems. You can read in his book, actually, The Phenomenon. Great book he wrote. We've never really seen anything quite like Rick Ankiel's career, and it's one of my all-time favorite Cardinals stories. A guy who just completely loses it on the mound, goes away, and we think that's a huge bust, works his way back to be a power-hitting outfielder. That home run he hit, his first home run he hit against the Padres, back at home as a position player. One of Dan McLaughlin's best calls as a Cardinal broadcaster. After this, go look it up right now. It's great. Great story, Rick Ankiel. One of my all-time favorite Cardinals for sure.
Have to love a story about perseverance. That guy couldn't get it together on the mound. I mean, we all remember him for his high socks and his wild pitches. And to be able to turn that around and be an outfielder and to hit the ball the way he was able to hit the ball, you have to root for that guy. Nothing but respect for him.
And he's got the 2 craziest outfield throws I've ever seen live on TV in my entire life in Colorado from the warning track.
Exactly.
Those
I wish I had that type of
absolutely
arm strength.
insane.
Man, that was ridiculous.
He was fun to watch for sure. All right, that'll wrap it up for the first episode of Cardinals Plus. For Ahmad Hicks, I'm Corey Miller. Thanks for talking cards with us. We'll hopefully see you at the ballpark soon.